Challengers is the latest from Luca Guadagnino, the filmmaker behind Call Me By Your Name, as well as Bones and All. And in this film, Tashi, played by Zendaya, is married to a champion on a losing streak. Her strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against his former best friend and Tashi's former boyfriend. Before we get into the rest of the video, I do want to give a special thank you to the sponsor, BetterHelp. It's been wonderful to be able to turn to something like BetterHelp because over the past few years, I've had so many new life changes, becoming a father, making a film, the strikes last year that halted aspects of my career as well as people that I knew. It's been great for me. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann. You answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or computer, via phone call, video chat, or messaging, however you feel comfortable. It's the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. And you'll be matched with a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. So let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. So go to betterhelp.com/Chris Stuckmann. That link is in the description below. Or when you're signing up, use my channel name, Chris Stuckmann, for a special discount off your first month. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. If you've seen Call Me By Your Name, Bones and All, or even his Suspiria remake, you know that Luca Guadagnino does not tackle any simple stories. And even in a film like Challengers that is presented in a fairly simple way, it's a love triangle viewed from the lens of tennis, nothing about the way he helms this movie reflects other films at all. The tennis matches are depicted in increasingly different ways. Sometimes you have very long takes of one tennis match, other times it's a little more simple, and sometimes the camera is the POV of the ball, and you're being smacked back and forth on this court, changing perspectives constantly. He makes sure the tennis action never gets boring, and there's a lot of it. The soundtrack behind the movie is also very aggressive, sometimes to the film's detriment. It feels kind of like late 90s techno, and it's played very loudly throughout the tennis matches, but it's also played extremely loudly throughout arguments that these characters have. Sometimes it even overpowers their dialogue a little bit, which is where I thought it began to be a bit abrasive. But I thought that basically what he was saying was that the tennis matches are a back and forth, a volley across a net, and it's very intense, and their arguments tend to be similar. It felt like watching a tennis match, which might have been the point. Sometimes, though, I did feel like it got in the way of enjoying the performances, which are all excellent. This cast led by Zendaya completely disappear into their roles. I never once thought of them as actors. Even as famous as Zendaya is, I thought she was absolutely ruthless in this movie. She's depicted as someone who cares more about tennis than really anything else, which helps the movie explore one of its primary themes. What happens to a relationship when it's built around a career, when one person in that relationship starts to lose interest in that career? What do they talk about now? Will their relationship matter anymore now that they both kind of have differing views of their future? And this kind of brings me into a point that you'll probably hear a lot when people discuss Challengers. In fact, it's something I hear often when it comes to any film involving romance, and that is that basically everyone in this movie is incredibly toxic. They are awful to each other and awful for each other. This is an often brought up criticism for a lot of romance movies, especially ones like Twilight or the 50 Shades of Grey movies, that the characters should never be together, they don't belong together, they're awful for each other, why is this a movie? And sometimes you go back to older films that people used to love and now they're looking at it from a modern lens and going like, this couple shouldn't be together. While sometimes I absolutely agree, I have to also look at movies like this as movies because they're not real. They're not reality. They're fictional characters. Why would you want to watch a romance movie about a bunch of people that just get along and go get coffee all the time? Maybe that might be okay for like a Seinfeld episode, but if you stretch it to 2 hours and 11 minutes, which is this movie's runtime, I need to see some people arguing. I need to see some drama. And you're not going to get that unless these relationships aren't exactly working out properly. Would you want to watch an action movie where nothing blows up, where nobody runs, nobody chases, nobody's in threat of anything, there are no obstacles, and there's no stakes? Of course not. That's why you go to an action movie. And you go to a romance movie to experience some drama, an interesting relationship. The character I feel the most sorry for in the movie is Zendaya's daughter. because she's basically a rather pointless addition to the story that holds very little meaning to it. They barely ever talk about her or acknowledge her existence, and I don't think it's just because they're rich people who play tennis for a living. I think it's because the screenplay has no reason to give them a daughter other than, I guess, potentially a little tension between relationships. And she is certainly going to be the ultimate victim amongst these three adults who can't figure their shit out. The movie also absolutely requires your laser-focused attention. I would hope you would be giving the film that anyway, but this movie jumps timelines a lot. You go back to the past, you go into the future, you go back to the past again, and sometimes you're sort of like in the middle too, where it's not just like 3 years ago, it's like earlier that week all of a sudden. And in so doing, the film makes the present day tennis matches far more dramatic, because as you continue to learn things about what led them to these tennis matches, and you get back to the match, it makes it so much more riveting every time you learn a new piece of information. The movie also shifted whose side I was on extremely efficiently. Like, I started off being like, yeah, that's the guy I'm rooting for. Now I'm rooting for her. And now I'm rooting for him. My empathy for the characters eventually turned into apathy and then back to empathy again. And it did so fairly seamlessly. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most impressive feat this movie pulled off, is that it presents itself early on as a simple tennis match. And as you learn more about the people who are in that match and trying to beat the other person, you realize that it is so much more than that. There is so much more on the line than just who's going to win this match. So with Luca Guadagnino's incredible direction, fantastic editing, and sometimes abrasive but very unique use of score, along with 3 terrific performances, I would highly recommend checking out Challengers when it comes out. I do think it's worth your time, especially if you're a big tennis fan. Like, this movie has so much tennis. I've never really been very interested in tennis, but this movie made it look very exciting. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.